Hey guys, this video is going to be over the cell membrane and an introduction to homeostasis. Okay, and I'll also have an animation for you to watch. I'll post it online. Make sure you watch it so you can familiarize yourself better with the cell membrane and how it works and what the cell membrane is composed of. Okay, so we'll start with what it's made out of. So it's made out of two things: lipids and proteins. It's actually a double layer of lipids, and those lipids are called phospholipids. That's because they have phosphorus in it. So you can see it on the drawing, and we're going to make a drawing to label all these structures. But the cell membrane is made up of two things: lipids and proteins. The proteins have specific functions. The lipids allow us to move and bend our bodies, and because they're flexible. Okay. Now, what goes through that cell membrane easily? Well, lipid-soluble substances. We just said that it was made up of lipids and proteins. Well, if all these substances that are lipid-soluble, meaning that they can mix with lipids or oils, right? If you put it in an oil, it would mix with it. Okay, not like some of the solutions that you put in there and they don't mix, right? These substances can actually go through the cell membrane without a problem. Okay, like oxygen, carbon dioxide, and steroids. Those are lipid-soluble substances. Things that can mix with lipids or oils can go through that cell membrane very, very easy. Some of them actually need help, and these substances are called water-soluble substances. Okay, water, ions, glucose, which is sugar. Remember, glucose is a carbohydrate. Also, amino acids, which are parts of the monomers of proteins. Okay, so water soluble, meaning they dissolve in water, they can mix with water but not oil. These substances need a little help, and the parts or the molecules that help these molecules go through are proteins. Okay, and you can see in the picture there's poor proteins and different types of proteins that we'll talk about, and we'll label when we make our drawing. But for now, just know that lipid-soluble substances go through the cell membrane very, very easy. Water-soluble substances like water, ions, glucose, and amino acids need a little help from proteins. Okay, the cell membrane, as we know, is made up of proteins and lipids, but the lipid part is made up of hydrophilic heads and hydrophobic tails. Hydrophilic heads meaning they love water, or they're polar, or they can stand water. You can put the hydrophilic heads in the water, and they don't have a problem with it. Okay, and you can see the drawing here. Let me put this, and then I'll use. So this right here, okay, this is the hydrophilic heads, right? You can see them here and there towards the water, right? But then you have the hydrophobic tails, which are these little tails hanging down right here. Okay, they are water haters. They don't like water. They're nonpolar. They want to be away from water, so that's why they turn towards the inside, and they're away from the water. Okay, so again, hydrophobic tails, they don't like water. Hydrophilic heads are the part of the phospholipid bilayer that do not mind water. Okay, all right. Now, there's proteins in the cell membrane, like fibrous proteins, and they function as receptors for the cell. They're just in the cell membrane, and they signal the cell, and they see if there's any changes. They sense any changes in the cell membrane. Okay, they're just receptors. Now, there's other ones that are channel and carrier proteins. Okay, or channel and pore proteins that transport ions across the membrane. Okay. And we'll see the difference in a minute, and I need you to watch the animation so that you can see how it's actually moving. Okay, but pore proteins actually let substances like water and amino acids go through there, while channel proteins carry in the ions and anything that has a charge into the membrane. Okay, now cholesterol, we hear it all the time as a bad thing, but it's actually a good thing for our cell membranes. Okay, and cholesterol, what it does is stabilize our cell membrane. It allows it to stay the way it is. Okay, of course, anything in excess is going to be bad for you, but cholesterol is a good molecule to help us maintain the structure of our cell membrane. Okay, so, and it's only in animal cells. It's not in plant cells. It's only in animal cells. So when you go to the store and you see a bottle of oil for sale, cooking oil, that says corn oil and it says no cholesterol, well, that's a given, right? They put it on there just as a marketing thing, but it shouldn't have any cholesterol because there's no cholesterol in plant cells. All right. Now, can everything go across the membrane? No, it cannot, right? Only certain things, and the reason is because the cell membranes are semi-permeable, and what that means is that only certain things can go through it. They're not completely permeable; they're semi-permeable, and to be more specific, they're selectively permeable. Okay, they select what goes in there. Depending on what the cell needs, okay? And the reason that's important, okay, that not everything goes in there or that everything goes in and out of the cell is because we want to maintain something called homeostasis. And what homeostasis is just equilibrium within our cells or within our bodies, okay? And that's why it's so important that our cell membrane controls what goes in and out of the cell and outside of the cell. Okay, into other cells. So let's make a quick drawing over there and make some labels to that so that you can have it in your notebook and you can use it as a guide or as a review for our upcoming exam. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to do these little structures. These are our phospholipids, right? And from just the presentation or the PowerPoint, you saw that they have two parts, hydrophilic heads, which are the ones that are towards the water, and hydrophobic tails, which are the ones that hide from the water, okay? And then you see that purple structure there, that's our proteins. Those are our fibrous proteins that are actually going to be receptors, right? And they're just embedded into the cell membrane. Then we have something else called the protein pores. The protein pores are the ones responsible for allowing, let me add it here. Let me make it smaller. They allow H2O or water-soluble substances to go in the cell, okay? In the cell, okay? All right. So they allow these water molecules to go into the cell. And then we also have protein channels, okay? And protein channels are the ones responsible for taking ions or molecules that have a charge, okay, to take them inside the cell and outside of the cell. Protein pores allow molecules to go in and out that are not charged or that are not ions. They don't have a charge, okay? Protein pores are for all those water-soluble substances. Protein channels are to take in ions, things that have a charge like sodium and potassium, and we'll talk more about that, okay? And then we also have a carbohydrate tail that serves as a identifier, okay? Every cell has carbohydrate tails, and we know that carbohydrates are sugar, so they are part of the cell membrane as well, okay? But every cell has different types of carbohydrate tails, and we're able to identify these cells by looking at those tails as well, okay? And I just put outside and inside just so you can have an idea. If we look at the structure, the entire structure, we call it a phospholipid bilayer. And we call it a bilayer because there's two layers of, you can see there's one here, there's one here. There's two layers of phospholipids, right? We can actually, if we wanted to, we could put a line right there and we can say this is one layer, this is another layer. Okay, so it's a bilayer, meaning double layer of phospholipids. Okay, the hydrophilic heads are polar, the hydrophobic tails are nonpolar, and we call those carbohydrate tails surface markers, because they help us identify these cells. Okay, and the last thing we'll add is that there's also some enzymes towards the inside of the cell, because remember, there's a lot of reactions happening inside of this cell, so those enzymes are needed. And remember, enzymes are proteins, so if they're proteins, they're made up of amino acids, and they help break down and speed up reactions by lowering the activation energy. Okay, so that's the cell membrane. That's the drawing of the cell membrane. And again, cell membranes are important because they help us maintain homeostasis, which is the ability to maintain equilibrium within our internal environments when we're dealing with the external changes. Okay, if the temperature goes up, okay, and it gets really hot, we start sweating. If the temperature goes down and it gets really cold, we start shivering. Again, these are things that are going to help us maintain equilibrium. And homeostasis is controlled by two ways: feedback mechanisms or feedback loops and cell transports. Okay, negative feedback mechanisms are things that bring everything to or that stabilize everything. Think of it as a thermostat in your house, right? You put it at 70 Fahrenheit, and if it goes above 75, well, it gets getting too hot, so the AC kicks in and it brings down the temperature. If it goes below 70, then the heater is going to turn on and bring it back up to 70. Negative feedback mechanisms is what keeps our temperature stable inside of our bodies. If it goes away from that middle, it's always going to bring it back. If it gets too hot, it's going to cool it down. If it gets too cold, it's going to warm it up. So that's negative feedback mechanisms. Another one, the other one that we need to talk about is positive feedback mechanisms. Okay, these are things that actually increase the output. Just like when a female is pregnant and they're about to go into labor or they're going into labor, then they want to increase the production of different hormones so that they're able to give birth to this child, right? Or when you get sick and you need to overproduce those white blood cells. Again, you're going away from the medium, okay? If we go back to the thermostat example, if we set it at 70, as soon as that thermostat reaches that it's at 70, it would actually send a signal back to the AC unit to start, blowing more cold air in here. So instead of 70, it can go all the way down to 30. Again, it's producing more than what is being asked to do. Okay, negative feedback mechanism brings everything back to normal. Positive feedback mechanism pushes it out of that medium. Okay, it increases the output. All right. So I hope this helped you. If you have any questions, please let me know.